The security guard's grip tightened on my arm as he dragged me past the engineering department I'd built from nothing. 80 employees. Not one looked up. Colton stood at the end of the hallway, arms crossed, watching me being paraded out like a criminal. 23 years of my life reduced to a humiliating perp walk through my own building. Then he smiled. That cold, arrogant smirk that said I was nothing. "Clean out your desk, Wesley," he announced loud enough for everyone to hear. Apex doesn't have room for dinosaurs anymore. I was 52 years old. I'd helped build this $2 billion company from a garage, and Norman's son-in-law just had me thrown out like garbage. But here's what Colton didn't know. That dinosaur he just humiliated? I built every system in that building. Every server. Every protocol. Every digital footprint he thought he'd hidden. 24 hours later, his stock crashed 40%. The SEC froze his assets, and federal agents walked into his office with handcuffs. You won't believe how this arrogant CEO's empire burned to the ground in less than a day. But before I show you exactly how I destroyed him, smash that subscribe button, because revenge this perfect doesn't happen often. Now let me tell you how a fired dinosaur became this man's worst nightmare. My name is Wesley Harding, and I'm 52 years old. 23 years ago, I walked into a garage with my best friend Norman Krieger and helped him turn sketches on napkins into Apex Dynamics, a $2 billion defense contractor. Norman was the genius, the engineer who saw possibilities nobody else could imagine. I was the operations guy who made those possibilities real. We were brothers in every way that mattered. I still remember those brutal early years. We slept on office couches because we couldn't afford apartments. Lived on instant ramen and gas station coffee. Worked 100-hour weeks because we believed we were building something that would change the world. And we did. Our advanced composite materials revolutionized aerospace engineering. We held 17 patents that other companies would kill to own. I met my wife Angela during year 3. She was a contracts officer for one of our first major government clients. Sharp, brilliant, and she saw potential in our scrappy operation when nobody else did. We got married a year later. Norman was my best man. "You two are the foundation," he told us at the reception, already 3 drinks in and emotional. "You keep me grounded while I reach for the stars." When Norman died of a heart attack at 46, I didn't just lose my business partner. I lost my brother. It was sudden, brutal. One minute he was sketching a new patent design. The next, he was gone. We'd just landed our biggest contract ever, a $150 million deal with the Department of Defense. Norman never got to see Apex become everything we'd dreamed. The board promoted me to Chief Operating Officer. But CEO went to Norman's son-in-law, Colton Briggs. Colton had married Norman's daughter Fiona straight out of business school. Norman brought him into the company as VP of Business Development 3 years before he died. Said Colton had the people skills that engineers like us lacked. I had doubts from the beginning. Colton was all presentation, no substance. He could schmooze clients over 18 holes of golf, but ask him to explain our titanium alloy formulations, and he'd change the subject. But Norman loved him, trusted him. So I kept my concerns to myself and focused on running the company. For the first 3 years after Norman's death, things worked. Colton handled board meetings and investor calls. I made sure our products were flawless and our contracts were bulletproof. Then Colton started changing things. He began hiring what he called disruptors. Young MBA graduates fresh from consulting firms who'd never built anything in their lives. They threw around buzzwords like synergy and maximizing shareholder value, but couldn't tell you the difference between grade 5 and grade 9 titanium. They looked at me like I was a museum exhibit. Wesley's old school, Colton would say in meetings, making it sound like a disease. Great for historical context, but we need fresh thinking for tomorrow's challenges. I was 52. I'd forgotten more about defense contracting than these kids would learn in a decade. My wife Angela saw it coming before I did. "He's building a narrative," she warned me over dinner one night. "Every comment where he dismisses you, every meeting where he brings in his young executives, he's painting you as obsolete." "He can't just force me out," I said. "I have board support. I have Norman's legacy." Angela just looked at me with sad eyes. "Honey, you're thinking like an engineer. Logic and loyalty. Colton thinks like a politician. And politicians destroy good people every day." She was right. I just didn't see it until it was too late. The cracks really started showing during contract reviews. We were negotiating a $20 million extension with Aerotech Industries, a client we'd worked with for 15 years. I caught some problematic liability clauses buried in Section 12. We need to revise this, I said, pointing to the language that could expose us to millions in damages. Norman and I built this company on ironclad contracts. Colton waved his hand dismissively. The client wants to move fast, Wesley. We'll address concerns later. Later means we're liable if something goes wrong. We don't compromise on protection. That's when Colton's mask slipped. Norman is dead, Wesley. His voice went cold. This isn't his company anymore. It's mine. And I'm tired of you treating every decision like we're still working out of a garage. The conference room went silent. His young executives exchanged glances. They could smell blood in the water. I should have seen what was coming. But I still believed loyalty mattered. That 23 years of building something together meant something. But Colton was about to cross a line that would cost him everything. Have you ever had someone take advantage of your kindness? Let me know in the comments. It happened on a Thursday morning in March. I walked into the executive conference room thinking it was our regular operations meeting. Colton was already there. So were two security guards I'd never seen before, and some attorney in a $3,000 suit. Wesley, sit down, Colton said. His voice had that rehearsed quality, like he'd practiced this moment in front of a mirror. I stayed standing. What's going on? We're making organizational changes. The board has decided that Apex needs to move in a new strategic direction. Unfortunately, your position is being eliminated. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. You're firing me? We're offering a generous severance package. 6 months salary, continuation of benefits. Sign the agreement, and we can all move forward professionally. The lawyer slid papers across the polished table. Non-compete clause. Non-disclosure agreement. A check for $60,000. 6 months pay for 23 years of my life. This is a joke, I said, my voice shaking. Colton's expression didn't change. Security will escort you to your office. You have 30 minutes to collect personal belongings. Your company laptop, phone, and access credentials remain property of Apex Dynamics. Colton, I built this company with Norman. You can't just. Norman's dead, Wesley. Each word was ice. This is my company now. And frankly, you've been coasting on past accomplishments for years. The board unanimously agrees you're holding us back from our next phase of growth. The board. I looked at the lawyer. Does Fiona know about this? Does Norman's daughter know you're throwing out her father's best friend? Something flickered across Colton's face. Guilt maybe. Fear. Then it vanished. Fiona trusts my business judgment. Now, you can leave with dignity, or you can make this difficult and embarrassing for everyone. Your choice. I looked at those papers. At that pathetic check. At the man Norman had trusted with his legacy. I'm not signing anything. Colton nodded to the guards. Then please escort Mr. Harding from the premises. Effective immediately, they moved toward me. I held up my hands. You don't need to touch me. But they grabbed my elbows anyway. Firm grips like I was some kind of threat. They walked me through the building. Past the engineering department where I'd hired and mentored dozens of talented people. Past the quality control labs where Angela and I had established protocols that became industry standard. Past rows of cubicles where employees suddenly found their computer screens fascinating. Nobody looked at me. Nobody said goodbye. They were too afraid. Colton followed behind us. He wanted to watch this. To see me humiliated. At my office, they stood in the doorway while I grabbed personal items. 23 years reduced to what would fit in a cardboard box. Photos of Angela. My engineering license from the wall. A model of our first prototype that Norman had given me as a gift. A coffee mug that said, "World's best engineer" from my team. 5 minutes. One of the guards said, checking his watch. I packed in silence, trying to hold onto some shred of dignity. As they marched me toward the exit, I passed Colton one last time. He was standing by the elevator bank, arms crossed, watching the whole spectacle. And then he did it. He smiled. That cold, arrogant smirk that said he'd won. That I was nothing. That 23 years of loyalty and hard work meant absolutely nothing. He thought I was finished, a relic being cleared away to make room for his vision. What Colton didn't know was that I'd spent 23 years building every system that ran Apex Dynamics. Every protocol, every backup, every access point. What he didn't know was that old school meant I remembered when security actually mattered. When you built safeguards against people exactly like him. That smirk was his first mistake. His second was thinking I'd go quietly. But that's not even the worst part. I sat in my car in the parking lot for 30 minutes, just staring at the building through the windshield. 23 years of my life, and they'd thrown me out like garbage. My phone rang. Angela, how was the morning meeting? Her voice was light, unsuspecting. I got fired. Silence. Then quietly, come home. Right now. The drive felt surreal, like I was watching myself from outside my body. At every red light, I kept thinking about Colton's smirk, about those security guards gripping my arms, about employees who'd worked with me for years refusing to meet my eyes. Angela met me at the door, took one look at my face, and pulled me into a hug. Tell me everything. I did. Every humiliating detail. The ambush. The guards. The walk of shame through the building. He smiled. I said finally. While they dragged me out, Colton stood there smiling like he'd won some kind of victory. Angela's jaw tightened. That arrogant, she stopped herself. Okay, what are we going to do about it? What can we do? He owns the company now. Does he? Angela's eyes narrowed. Wesley, you built every system in that building. You know things nobody else knows. You have access nobody else has. She was right. I went to my home office, opened my personal laptop, the one Apex hadn't provided, the one with credentials they'd forgotten existed. See, when you build a company's infrastructure from the ground up, you know where all the doors are, including the ones nobody uses anymore. I still had administrative access to our legacy backup servers. The old system running contract management that everyone thought was deprecated but actually still mirrored everything for redundancy. Colton's tech-savvy MBA kids had probably never even looked at it. Too old, too unglamorous, not disruptive enough. I started digging. What I found in the first hour made my hands shake. Shell companies. Dozens of them registered to addresses that didn't exist. Contracts with vendors I'd never heard of. Money moving through accounts that weren't in our official books. Colton had been systematically embezzling from Apex for over 2 years. Little did they know, I was just getting started. I pulled up email archives, found communications between Colton and someone named Trent Holloway at Synergy Dynamics, our biggest competitor. They weren't discussing partnerships or industry cooperation. They were negotiating terms for Colton to sell Apex's entire patent portfolio. Once the stock price drops sufficiently, one email read, "We'll position it as a rescue acquisition. I get my payout, Synergy gets the intellectual property, everyone wins." What about the employees? Trent had asked. We'll file Chapter 11. Let bankruptcy court handle severance. By then I'll be in the Caymans. I sat back from the screen, feeling sick. This wasn't just about firing me. Colton was planning to destroy the company Norman and I built. 80 employees who trusted us would lose everything. Decades of innovation would be stolen. And he thought he'd get away with it. The real surprise came when I found the timeline. Colton had started planning this 3 years ago, right after Norman died. Maybe that's what killed Norman. The stress of discovering his son-in-law was a con artist. I spent the next 8 hours pulling everything. Every email, every wire transfer, every fake vendor invoice, every meeting note where Colton discussed asset stripping and maximizing executive compensation before the collapse. By 3 in the morning, I had a case that could send Colton to prison for 20 years. Securities fraud, embezzlement, corporate espionage, wire fraud. But prison wasn't enough. You won't believe what I discovered next. In prison, he'd be a victim. Poor Colton, destroyed by a vengeful old employee. His MBA buddies would visit. His lawyers would file appeals. He'd probably write a book about corporate warfare and land a consulting gig when he got out. No, I wanted him awake, watching everything he'd stolen burn in front of his eyes. I wanted him to feel exactly what I felt when those security guards grabbed my arms. By the time I was done gathering evidence, I had enough to destroy him 10 different ways. But that wasn't enough. I wanted everyone who'd believed his lies about me to see exactly who Colton Briggs really was. What would you have done at this point? Justice or mercy? Comment below. Angela found me still at my computer at 6 a.m. I hadn't slept, hadn't eaten, just built my case piece by methodical piece. Wesley, you need rest. I need to destroy him. She looked at my screens, at the evidence I'd compiled. Her face went pale as she read the emails about selling Apex's patents and declaring bankruptcy. Oh my God, he's going to kill everything you and Norman built. Not if I kill his empire first. I called my lawyer at 8 a.m. sharp. Not our corporate attorney. I needed someone who understood securities fraud and knew how to wage war with the SEC. Vincent Krause. He'd made his name prosecuting white-collar criminals before switching to defense. If anyone could weaponize what I'd found, it was him. Mr. Harding, he said after spending 2 hours reviewing my evidence, this is extraordinary. How did you obtain these records? I built the systems. I still have administrative credentials that nobody remembered to revoke. That could be challenged as unauthorized access. The access is legitimate. I'm technically still an employee until I sign their severance agreement. I smiled, which I haven't done. Vincent's expression shifted to something like respect. That's remarkably strategic thinking. We're going to work well together. We spent 3 days building the plan. Not just a legal case, but a systematic demolition of everything Colton had built on lies. This is where it gets really good. An SEC investigation will take months, Vincent explained. Maybe years. By then, Colton could liquidate everything and disappear to a country without extradition. We need to hit him where it hurts immediately. His reputation, I said. More than that. His investor confidence. His stock price. His board position. His freedom. Vincent leaned forward. Here's what we're going to do. The plan had 3 phases, each one designed to strip away another layer of Colton's armor. Phase 1, Truth Bomb. We'd package everything into an encrypted dossier with irrefutable authentication. Send it simultaneously to the SEC Enforcement Division, every board member, the FBI's white-collar crime unit, and one very specific reporter at the Wall Street Journal who'd built a career on exposing corporate fraud. Phase 2, Client Collapse. I'd personally call our 3 largest clients. Tell them what was coming. Give them 48 hours to protect their contracts before the story went public. Phase 3, the kill switch. This was the nuclear option. Something Norman and I had built into Apex's corporate structure years ago when we were paranoid about hostile takeovers. A founder's fail-safe clause buried deep in the bylaws. If activated, it triggered an emergency stock distribution to all employees and early investors, massively diluting any controlling party's shares. Norman and I put it in as protection against corporate raiders. I never imagined I'd use it against his own son-in-law. That's nuclear, Vincent said when I explained it. He went nuclear when he had security drag me out like a criminal. Fair point. We set the timeline. Monday morning. Markets opened at 9:30 a.m. That gave us the weekend to coordinate everything. Saturday afternoon, I called Norman's daughter Fiona. She answered on the 3rd ring, sounding surprised. Uncle Wesley? I heard what happened. I'm so sorry. Colton said it was just a business restructuring. Fiona, stop talking and listen to me very carefully. Your husband is committing securities fraud. He's planning to sell Apex's patents to Synergy Dynamics and bankrupt the company. I have proof. Dead silence. That's impossible. Colton wouldn't. I'm sending you files right now. Look at them. Your father built this company to be his legacy. Colton is destroying it for personal profit. Wesley, I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything yet. Just look at what I'm sending. Then decide if this is the man your father trusted. I hung up before she could argue. Sent her the evidence package with trembling hands. Sunday night, I barely slept. Angela held my hand in the darkness. Are you sure about this? She whispered. He destroyed everything Norman and I built. Everything we believed in. Everything we sacrificed for. I know. I just want to make sure you're ready for what comes next. I've been ready since he smiled at me in that hallway. Monday morning arrived. The sun came up. Markets prepared to open. They thought they were dealing with an obsolete engineer from a bygone era. They were about to learn they'd messed with someone who built the battlefield they were playing on. 9:01 a.m. I pressed send. The encrypted dossier went to 15 recipients simultaneously. SEC enforcement. Every Apex board member. FBI white-collar crime unit. Financial regulators. And Blake Morrison at the Wall Street Journal, the reporter who'd broken the Enron scandal. By 9:06, my phone rang. Mr. Harding, this is Blake Morrison. I'm looking at your files. This is explosive. Can you verify these sources? Every email, every wire transfer, every shell company is documented with server logs and metadata. I can provide complete authentication. I need to move fast. Briggs will have lawyers trying to suppress this by noon. That's why I'm calling our major clients right now. I hung up and dialed Harold Vance, CEO of Aerotech Industries. He'd worked with Norman and me for 15 years. Trusted us. Harold, it's Wesley Harding. I have information you need immediately. Wesley, I heard about your departure. Colton said you were retiring. Colton fired me, and he's committing securities fraud. He's planning to sell Apex's patents to Synergy and file bankruptcy. The story breaks in minutes. I'm giving you a heads up to protect your contracts. Long silence. Then, how certain are you? I have emails, wire transfers, meeting notes. It's happening, Harold. Right now. Jesus Christ. Okay. Thank you for the warning. I made 2 more calls. Same message. Same urgency. By 9:15, the market started whispering. Trading algorithms detecting unusual activity. Apex stock began moving. Apex, $152.33 at open. Then at 9:18, the Wall Street Journal's breaking news alert hit every financial terminal in America. Defense contractor Apex Dynamics under investigation. CEO allegedly embezzled millions, exclusive. Blake Morrison's article went live. Every detail, every shell company, every email about asset stripping. The stock started hemorrhaging. 9:22 a.m., $148.22. I imagined Colton in his corner office, watching the ticker, not understanding what was happening yet. 9:28 a.m., $135.18. His phone would be ringing now. Board members, investors, panicked executives. 9:35 a.m., $118.55. Then I activated the kill switch. The founder's failsafe that Norman and I had buried in Apex's corporate bylaws. One command, one authorization code that only 2 people in the world knew. Norman was dead. That left me. Suddenly shares flooded the market. Every employee receiving emergency distributions. Every early investor. All diluting Colton's controlling stake into worthlessness. The stock went into freefall. 9:45 a.m., $99.33. 10 a.m., $74.18. 10:15 a.m., $65.22. Colton's personal fortune, built on stock options and phantom equity, was evaporating in real time. Millions of dollars turning into nothing while he watched helplessly. 10:30 a.m., $51.88. But the best part was yet to come. My phone rang. Unknown number. I already knew who it was. You bastard. Colton's voice was barely controlled rage. What have you done? I turned off the machine you were using to destroy Norman's legacy. You've destroyed the company. The stock is crashing. We're losing everything. No, Colton. You destroyed it. I'm just making sure everyone knows. The board will sue you. The SEC will investigate you for. The SEC is executing search warrants on your office right now. The board just voted unanimously to remove you. And your wife? Fiona sent me an email an hour ago. She's filing for divorce and cooperating with federal investigators. Silence. Just breathing. You thought you could erase me, I said quietly. You forgot that I built every system you were using to commit fraud. Every server. Every protocol. Every backup. Every failsafe. I'll fight this. I have lawyers. Your lawyers are abandoning you as we speak. 3 of them just called offering to cooperate in exchange for immunity. More silence. I could hear him starting to panic now. Reality setting in. Why? His voice cracked. Why did you do this to me? Because you smiled, Colton. While security dragged me out of the building I spent 23 years building, you stood there and smiled like you'd won something. I hung up. 11 a.m. SEC froze Colton's assets. Every account. Every property. Everything. 12 p.m. Federal investigators walked into Apex headquarters with boxes and warrants. 1 p.m. The board issued an official statement. Colton Briggs has been terminated for cause. A full investigation into financial irregularities is underway. Wesley Harding has been asked to return as interim CEO to stabilize operations. I sat at my home office, watching it unfold on every financial news channel. Angela brought me coffee. How do you feel? Tired, I admitted, but satisfied. The doorbell rang at 2:30. I wasn't expecting anyone. It was Colton, standing on my porch in a wrinkled suit, his car crooked in my driveway. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in 6 hours. Can I come in? Angela appeared behind me. Absolutely not. But I was curious. 5 minutes. He walked in like a condemned man. We stood in the living room. I didn't offer him a seat. "I need you to fix this," he said. His voice was shaking. "Call the SEC. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. You're destroying my life." "Your life?" I stared at him. "I spent 23 years building Apex with Norman. You spent 2 years systematically stealing everything we created. And you want me to save you? I made mistakes, okay? But this is too far. You're going to completely ruin me." "You ruined yourself, Colton. I just made sure everyone could see it." He tried another angle. Desperation. "Please, Wesley. Think about Fiona. Think about what this will do to Norman's daughter." "I am thinking about her. She deserves to know her husband is a criminal before she ends up implicated as an accessory." His face twisted with rage. "You self-righteous. Get out." I walked to the door, opened it. "Security will escort you out now." "Oh wait, you don't have security anymore. You'll have to leave on your own." He left. The slam of his car door was the sweetest sound I'd heard in days. The aftermath was brutal. For Colton, the SEC investigation moved with shocking speed. I'd handed them everything they needed on a silver platter. Emails with timestamps, wire transfers with routing numbers, shell companies with registration documents. Colton was arrested 3 weeks later. Full perp walk. Photographers catching him in handcuffs, his face on every news channel. The board asked me to return as CEO. I agreed, but only temporarily. Long enough to stabilize the company and find someone worthy to carry Norman's legacy forward. Our clients came back. Harold Vance from Aerotech personally called to thank me. "You saved us, Wesley. If you hadn't warned me, we'd have been tied up in Colton's bankruptcy for years. You're a man of integrity." The employees threw me a welcome back party. 80 people who'd been terrified of losing their jobs, now celebrating. Several approached me privately to apologize. "We were scared," one engineer told me, tears in her eyes. "Colton made it clear that showing you any loyalty meant losing our jobs." "I'm so sorry." "I know," I said gently. "That's why I made sure you all got stock distributions when I triggered the failsafe. You built this company too. You deserve to share in saving it." 6 months later, I walked into Apex headquarters for what I knew would be one of my final days as CEO. The company had stabilized. Stock was back to $127. We'd landed 2 new major contracts. Norman's legacy was secure. That morning, I found something on my desk. A letter, hand-delivered. No postage. It was from Colton, written from federal prison. "Wesley, I've had 6 months to think. You were right about everything. I destroyed what Norman built. I destroyed my marriage, my reputation, my freedom. But I need you to understand, I didn't do it because I hated you or Norman. I did it because I felt entitled." Somewhere along the way, I started believing being CEO meant I deserved everything, regardless of how I got it. You taught me a lesson I'll never forget. Actions have consequences. Betrayal has a price. And sometimes that price is watching everything you stole turn to ashes while you stand helpless. I'm sorry. For whatever it's worth. Colton. I read it twice. Then I fed it into the shredder beside my desk. Some apologies come too late. Some betrayals can't be forgiven with words written from a prison cell. That afternoon, I stood in the parking lot one final time, looking up at the Apex Dynamics building. This time, I was leaving on my terms. Angela pulled up in her car. I climbed in. "Ready?" she asked. "Ready." We drove away from the empire I'd built, protected, and ultimately saved from the man who'd tried to destroy it. Justice was served, and karma had the final word. Colton Briggs is currently serving 12 years in federal prison. His appeals have been denied twice. His assets were seized to pay restitution. Apex Dynamics is thriving under new leadership. The company Norman and I built is still changing the world, developing technologies that save lives. And me? I'm fully retired now, consulting occasionally, spending time with Angela, living the life Colton thought he could take from me. The lesson? Never underestimate the quiet ones. We're not weak. We're not obsolete. We're just gathering evidence. If you enjoyed seeing an arrogant CEO get exactly what he deserved, you'll love my next story about the business partner who tried to force me out using forged documents. He forgot I'm the one who taught him everything about corporate law. What's the most satisfying revenge you've ever seen? Share in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more justice stories where the good guys actually win.
If this story got you thinking, go ahead and hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe for more real stories that hit deep, and tap the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. And hey, if you know someone who needs to hear this one, share it with them. Thanks for watching.